This is going to be a fun conversation about NFTs. Really excited that you're jumping in and joining me. Excited to learn from you and ask you some questions. Can you please introduce yourself to me and let's dive right in.
Sure, Ian. So again, thank you so much for inviting me. It really is a pleasure to be here. My name is Shamir Ozeri. I am Marketing Programs Director at Algorand. Um, you know, uh, NFT junkie. I think I even have that on my Twitter profile. And just someone who, like you, is committed to learning and, try to move the space forward and helping it evolve as we go. Lifelong marketer by trade, so I'm less savvy on the technological perspective of things, but very, very geared and oriented towards community and, and building and what growth means. So that's kind of what's, I guess, driven me throughout my career and today, in the blockchain space. Yeah.
And you've been in the NFT space like since close to the beginning, right? CryptoPunks was an attractor to you in 2017, and you've seen things
Yeah.
change. So seen things change so much. What do you think about the way the community has changed? Because when people first came in, they still
Yeah.
lived in an exclusively Web 2 world. And we
Right.
started to kind of play around these thoughts of decentralized. But now there's people like really that have transitioned. So how have you, as a marketer, right? How have you
Yeah.
seen community kind of ebb and flow through the changes and make our way slowly out of Web 2 into the Web 3 ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the million-dollar question, right? And I think one of the things that struck me when I first, just to like maybe take us back, I first heard of CryptoPunks in 2017. I ran along with a couple friends the Michigan Ethereum meetup out of all things, and we had a speaker who came. He was technical, and I lost 90% of the things that he said. But one of the projects that he was talking about was, these 24 by 24 pixel characters that have a digital representation on the blockchain, and that people are actually, that they were, claimed initially, but at that point people were actually buying them. And I think, at that time, like an alien CryptoPunk, which, is the king, right? The OG of the OGs, went for like 5 grand, and you could probably get the floor ones for $50 or $90 or something like that. And as a marketer, right, and someone who, by the way, like, so at the same time I was teaching entrepreneurial marketing at University of Michigan, and one of the first like kind of classes really introduced the concept that when you have a company, when you have a product or service, you're not really selling that product or service at the end of the day. At the end of the day, you're selling a solution to a problem, right? Or you're offering a solution to a problem. That's probably the better terminology. And when I heard of these digital characters being sold, what really struck me as puzzling was, why did people care? Like, what problem are these, right? Like these profile pictures or whatever they are solving? So that's it. I put everything aside. I started digging in it. I wrote a blog post about it, and I was hooked, right? Because what I started realizing, and I'll get to your question, right? What I started realizing was that it all comes down to identity. And identity is a derivative of community, or, it's something that those are two very, very kind of connected, right? Energy flows, right? Where I am part of my clan, I am part of my tribe. And maybe that's the early adopter Ethereum tribe, right? Maybe it's my home, village tribe, my family, my sports team, all of these different things. But at the time, it really was kind of this, niche within a niche within a niche thing that when I tried explaining it to normal people, they didn't really get it, right? Most of them, like 99%. And even within the blockchain world, right? My buddies were kind of like, well, there's much more interesting things, right? Than like these specific characters. So I think what I've kind of witnessed over the years is how that little spark, right, like turned into a flame and started growing and growing and growing initially, within the Ethereum community, and then, the greater blockchain community. And, that CryptoPunks ended up inspiring CryptoKitties, which were kind of the first gamification of it, right? And then, crypto winter happened, right? If I'm looking at 2018, 2019, where the hype was really, really down, but you had a lot of builders kind of coming up with these new and innovative ideas behind the scene. And I think, again, crypto winter in a sense was a really positive force for the industry, in that, it kind of cleared away a lot of the noise, right? And it really left the core, and something beautiful grew out of it, right? If I'm looking at 2019 and just the amount of energy that it's gained. So, I think I started feeling a change maybe mid last year or towards the end of 2020, when you start seeing people that are outside of the crypto verse, right? Twitter, the crypto Twitter, start asking about NFTs, and kind of, artists, creators joining the space. I think, like, to me, that's where I started seeing a paradigm shift. And then, we started being bombarded with all these projects again, a lot of them not so great, right? But some of them, really, really innovative in their approach. I'm thinking right now of, just off the top of my mind, like Euler Beach, that came out at the time with, for music and royalties, and you had hash masks with I think there were like 70 artists that worked on that, right? And something that I would actually put on my wall right at home. I have one, like right here on the wall. And then you have Bored Apes, right, where it's suddenly, like, we're talking about drops, and we're talking about community, right? We're talking about a club, like literally a club. So I think, I think it's kind of compounded, and obviously not grown linearly. It's grown exponentially. And, we're still just at the tip of the iceberg, because if you go out to the street and you talk to someone about NFTs, right, we're in our own little bubble, right? Most people still are not there yet.
Well, with that in mind, I mean,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
potentially some people that are watching this that aren't familiar with your company and what you do there as the marketing programs director. Maybe you could talk a bit about that, and
Sure.
for those that would be
Yeah.
new
So,
to it.
so Algorand is a third generation blockchain. We are a layer one protocol. So we offer a lot of the primitives and basically the tools, let's call it, for developers to build their own applications. We're an offshoot of MIT. Silvio Micali, who in many senses is considered the godfather of modern cryptography, really created Algorand as a concept to solve what at the time was really a big problem, which was the blockchain trilemma, right? There was this kind of ever-growing assumption that a blockchain can't be scalable and decentralized and secure at the same time, that you basically have to choose two of those three. And Silvio came out with a novel new way to solve it. And the blockchain launched, the mainnet, I think, launched about 2 years ago. And we've constantly evolved. Today we're talking about over 800 companies building on the blockchain, thousands and thousands of developers. We just reached 14 million wallets. It's been a real pleasure to kind of witness the evolution of Algorand. When it comes to my job, it really is about facilitating, or not even facilitating, but again, planting those seeds, right, for those sparks and the community to kind of become its own thing, right? Whether that's hackathons. So we have 2 hackathons going on right now. There's a Swiss blockchain hackathon, and we have another one called Innovate by Algorand, which we're doing with Hacker Earth. So these are online virtual hackathons that are open to anyone to participate in. Running those, we do a lot of events and things that are geared more towards the enterprise side of things, and corporations that are looking to get their feet wet in the space or solve existing problems that they have with Algorand's technology. Today we're working on a conference. So we're also doing our own conference in Miami. It's called Decipher. It's going to happen at the end of the month. NFTs are going to be a big piece of that conference, whether it's kind of surprise drops for in person, and we have a certain portion of the virtual attendees, whether it's the ability to show people on the space. We're going to have a graffiti artist, and he's going to be teaching people how to do graffiti art. And then once they do it, we're looking to teach them how to mint it. and share it and own it or sell it or do whatever they want with it. So we have some surprises going on that front. Apart from that, we just have a lot of different campaigns and activities going on, whether it's again, events and content and education. We launched a new developer portal. It's really about facilitating that energy for developers and on the business side of things as well.
If I say to you NFT 2024,
yeah,
what type of things are you hoping for, building towards, projecting, not predicting, but driving towards in the next 2 or 3 years with all the things that you got your hands in?
Yeah, so I can't predict, right? I have no idea, no clue. My guess is as good as anyone's. What I am seeing though, and back to that point, is that the space is evolving and it's evolving rapidly and exponentially. So, right now, for example, you're kind of seeing a transition from collectibles to art, and now suddenly gaming. Like gaming's always been one of those things, right? But suddenly you're starting to see with Axie Infinity and just various other examples how like NFTs are being utilized there. Are you familiar with the technological adoption life cycle?
Yes.
The curve? Yeah. So I feel like I think gaming is going to play a key role in that, in kind of helping us what we call cross the chasm and go mainstream, right? I think we're close. I think gamers that aren't necessarily blockchain native are ready and kind of looking. And as soon as the technology is accessible, as soon as there's a solution that it's the blockchain component of it is invisible and the fees are invisible, which again, by the way, on Algorand, if a transaction costs 1,000th of an algo, so that's like two tenths of a penny, right? And it's 5 seconds and it's final. So I think that component is still missing, right? Being able to serve them in a way that they're actually familiar with, right? From, let's call it the traditional Web 2 world, the more centralized world. But I think as soon as that happens, you'll start seeing a lot of momentum in gaming. And then the other kind of intersection, which is really fascinating, is everything having to do with kind of NFTs going into DeFi. If we're thinking about fractionalization of assets, if you're thinking about DAOs, right, decentralized autonomous organizations, collaborating or managing assets, or or creating marketplaces, I think there's a lot of untapped potential there as well. I had something else, drawing a blank, but I think at the end of the day, you're seeing a lot of. Right now, I feel like a lot of the things that are happening are kind of a sandbox. Oh, and I know what I was going to say. What I was going to say was, I think today, when we say NFTs, it's pretty much synonymous, right, with collectibles and art. That's kind of how it is. But, again, let's not forget that this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? And that in a world where nearly any asset, physical or not, right, can be tokenized, suddenly there's just a plethora, right, of opportunities to manage that asset, to monetize that asset, to lock it up, right, and start earning yield. So again, I think no one knows, right? No one knows exactly where it's going to be. But I think what we're seeing today, whether it's on some of these layer one protocols, definitely on Algorand as well, it's almost like a sandbox, right? People are experimenting, and that's what's so fascinating. So what we're starting to see with art and collectibles, I think, is kind of gonna convert itself or evolve into kind of more traditional finance. And that's going to be a ride as soon as the traditional, more centralized, more legacy way of doing things is disrupted, and really any person, you, me, whoever, right, wherever, is really able to kind of be a part and play an integral role within the system.
Well, I must say this is a different conversation than I've had. In fact, today's been unique in that a lot of the conversations I've had today have been very different than others. So I'm glad that we went and aired things out a bit this time. Well, if I told you more, we'd end up going on, then people would be like, "Oh, that's the long video," and I do want people to engage with us. Right. I think crossing the chasm and talking about gaming being a big part of that. You mentioned the sandbox, and to me, when I look at like Minecraft, I have two sons, 9 and 12 years old.
Yep.
When I look at my
Me too.
boys, and they've spent maybe collectively 10,000 hours building Microsoft's intellectual property that
Right.
Microsoft could just take away from them at any moment. And for
Right.
years, I'm like, you guys got to play the sandbox. This is the future, man. You'll own everything you build. It's your own world. And
Yeah.
now I can feel the rhythms in my boys where they're like, okay, so tell me more about Sandbox. Show me a video. Okay, I think I want to press into this. And I can see how when our children really begin to grab a hold of, okay, maybe I don't own a house or a car,
Right.
but I've built worlds in the
Right.
metaverse and it's mine. And if I don't want it anymore, I can sell it and I can be compensated for what I've actually produced and built. And I think, as you mentioned, this whole thing of gaming being the thing for the adoption curve, I really align with you on that. Let me ask you this final question. If you had all the billboards in Times Square and you
Mm.
have everybody's attention at NFT NYC, um, what would be one or two messages? Maybe there's a corporate message, like call to action, and maybe there's an inspirational message, like a driving thing of wisdom. But what might you want to say to the NFT NYC community if you had everybody's attention?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so there's the marketer in me, right, with Algorand. And the message there is as simple as Algorand is the future of finance and gaming and NFTs. And you should, check it out, right? But that's the plug. All right. That's the Algorand plug. That's me with my Algorand hat on, right? When it comes to a little more kind of profound, I really think it's about paying attention. I would say something like, the future is in your pocket. All you need to do is pay attention, in the sense that like not everyone needs to know how an NFT works and what a blockchain is. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that we're in the midst. Well, we're not in the midst. We're really at the beginning, right, of a profound cultural shift that is in my mind. I don't know how, and I don't know how it's going to express itself, right? I don't know how it's going to manifest. But what's very, very, very clear is that, and to your point, we didn't even talk about the metaverse, right? The metaverse is its own, right? Like literal universe, right? Infinite universe where anything can be built. But my point is, yes, I think, I have an 8-year-old boy, right? So similar ages. He plays Roblox, he plays Minecraft. To him, it's really, again, me owning a CryptoPunk is just as physical and as meaningful as me owning a Picasso, right? Or something else on the wall. He gets it. There's no difference between something digital that he owns or a physical card that he owns. And I think, again, even like my generation, right? Most people still will ask that question, but what is it, right? Where is it? You can't hold it. You can't feel it, right? So yeah, Times Square, billboard, mass audience. I would say, hey, a lot's going to change in the next few years. Again, I drank the Kool-Aid. You don't have to drink the Kool-Aid, but at least know that it's there. And I think it's worth paying attention. And I guess that would be a good conversation starter, right? Let them fall down the rabbit hole after that, or not, right? But again, know that the rabbit hole is there, so that they don't trip over it, or just go on without realizing that.
Well, this has been fun. Again, I imagine you and I, maybe we'll connect in New York and we'll have these much longer conversation about some of these things, especially with all the things we have in common. And we even touch base that you're based out of Israel and my fascination with that. But for anybody that's watching us live or sees the
Yeah.
archive of this, I want to thank you for your attention. If you don't know me, my name's Ian Utilli. I'm one of the co-producers of NFT NYC, and we have the incredible honor of having amazing people like you, Shamir, coming to represent your company and coming also to be a part of this community, because that's what we are. We're a community of people building the future together. So thanks for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in New York.
Thanks